Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Lamenters. We are back here with the full crew. And in the last episode, the party had decided to escort the Steiner family to safety to the north in the borderlands to the town of Aigner. And upon coming to the town, some of you who grew up in the borderlands and had been there in your last memories, you remember it being a much smaller village. Maybe of a population of like 800, whereas now you look upon a full-fledged town, a town that has very sturdy wooden palisades surrounding it, and it looks like it's expanded. There are larger buildings in the town, and a militia which bears the insignia of Lee County, which is something else that you don't remember from your memories before. Your recollections were that Aigner was an independent village, and now it would seem that it is in some way associated with Lee County. You guys made it into the town, checking your weapons at the customs office, which seems to be the law of the town, and you made your way to the Gray Mare and dropped off the Steiner family. Actually, they went in ahead of you, secured his room for his family, and you have since gone to the inn. You have secured rooms for yourselves, and you are now meeting up with Steiner in the tavern. The tavern is bustling. There's a musician, playing a lute and singing songs, and there's a lot of people in the tavern drinking, eating food. But you are able to acquire a long table because you are a large group. You're able to acquire a long table. So all of you kind of sit down, and after a day of traveling through the forest, you're looking forward to a hearty meal. And assuming that you order food and drinks, they bring out drinks, and the food will be arriving shortly. You notice that as you guys all sit down and you're starting to have your drinks, Steiner just has a general look of just relief on him. He seems just much more at ease, less tense than he was when you guys first encountered him at the Soldier's Rest, where he was taking refuge from being hunted by the Imperial forces. But he sits with you now, and he lifts up his mug and he says, "To all of you, I would like to raise a toast. You have my family's gratitude for your generosity in escorting us to safety here. I am certain that we would have been in great danger had we tried to take the roads. So I truly appreciate beyond anything that I could offer you, but I will raise a toast to you and your health." And he raises a toast, and everybody kind of has a drink.
Cheers.
Cheers.
It's the music's playing, people are talking, there's people laughing, there's glasses and plates clinking. So you have a lot of like ambient noise, but he kind of leans forward, sort of in the center of the table, kind of leaning forward to speak to all of you, and he says, "I know that many of you have questions, and I would answer those questions, if only to somewhat repay you for the debt that I owe you. It is within my power to give you any information I can give you that I know of, and I will grant that for whatever you ask."
You promised me that you will tell me about the fishermen of the three rivers that you were pacifying. So do you have any names or families or...
He says, I can tell you that when I was first conscripted, I did my training at the fort just outside of Three Rivers. I was there for a period of 3 months, and after that I was assigned to a regiment that was going across the river to Morath. While I was in the Three Rivers region, well, by the time I started serving, that area had already been subjugated by the Empire. I think perhaps 10 years ago, there was an initial resistance, but I think that Three Rivers had been secured for quite some time by the Empire. I could tell you that there had been a small lumber mill, and that was established again maybe 8 years ago. Most of that work was the Empire basically having the locals work to create more of a robust lumber trade, and they were shipping a lot of that down to Southport. I can't say for sure which specific families may have been affected by that, but it would seem that most of the residents of the Three Rivers area were basically living their lives and working. To the best of my knowledge, that is what I know of that area. When I was transferred to Morath, the more recent incident that I told you all of on our journey up here, that was not near Three Rivers. That was to the northeast of Morath. It was upriver from Morath, basically.
All right.
I will say that there were at least rumors from some of the Imperial scouts that military forces from the eastern kingdoms had started to move into the borderlands to the east. But we did not have any encounters or battles with any such forces. And to my knowledge, there is not a clear route through the mountains to the borderlands unless you go through the foothills, and that would be south of Morath, southeast of Morath. So if there are rebels who oppose the Empire that are being supported by the Eastern Kingdoms, my assumption is that they're coming from the foothills southeast of Morath or due east of Three Rivers.
You know, my family lives, or maybe lived, in the region of Three Rivers. And that's why I was asking about Morath and the foothills. You know, my dad always told me, where is the will, there is the way. So, if the opposing forces to the Empire are marching in that direction, it is bloody well possible. Yeah, I don't know much about that region, but trust me, there is always the way. And Bivoj gets a little bit broody.
He says, your family, to your knowledge, are they still in Three Rivers?
I don't know. Like, my dad was a woodcutter and he was injured while I was still there. My sister and my brother-in-law took him in. My brother-in-law was a fisherman. And
A fisherman?
yes.
Do you know
So, I don't know.
what was his name?
Oh, I have to find it.
I know. Jetri.
Yetri.
Yetri. Okay, so do you tell Steiner this?
Yeah.
He says, one moment. And you see him go into his satchel. And you guys remember him saying that when he basically committed his treason, that he went into the captain's office at the fort outside of Morath and took a ledger, basically. You see him pull this book out and set it on the table, and he opens it up and he starts flipping through pages, and his fingers are kind of scanning across the notations and the different dates. And he says, "Your brother-in-law is on a list of suspected rebels."
Shit.
It would appear that he has a wife named Kazi, perhaps,
Yes.
and 3 children.
Yes.
So here in this ledger, it says that their family is on the east side of Lake Nargan.
Oh.
Perhaps they moved?
Yeah.
He says there's no villages on the east side of that lake. It abuts the mountains. But perhaps they built a homestead there?
They had to move. They were living just outside of the 3 rivers when I was there.
Well, if
It
they
was-
moved, then there's a possibility that they're not so far away. If they're on the east side of Lake Nargan, we are currently at the northwest end of Lake Nargan. So they could be simply across the lake.
Oh my god, I have to see them. Guys, I know we have a lot to do, but I have to see my family. I have to see if they are okay.
He says,
And-
good sir,
I understand that.
knowing what I know, I would recommend that you wait until daytime to try to find a fishing boat to take you across. He says, I don't think any fishing folk travel the lake or the river at night because of some of the dangers that exist.
No, I won't do it now, but in the morning it would be much appreciated.
He nods.
That's troublesome. And Bivoj just dig into his food lost in thoughts, mumbling for himself. Like, how did this happen? What's going on?
I look around the tavern some more. I lower my head and I say, what do you know of the Eastern Kingdoms?
He says, very little. There's the closest that the Empire came to war with the Eastern Kingdoms was in the initial invasion of Southport. He says there's, and again, he said this is many years ago. I was just a boy at this time, a young lad, and I could tell you that the kingdom, well, Hazadas did not join the Empire until after Southport was taken. But once Southport was under siege, the Eastern Kingdoms, for a brief time, I believe, Vojka held or tried to hold a blockade to prevent the Empire from invading Southport. Once Hazadas joined the Empire, there was no resistance. Their navy was far too strong. And Vojka pulled back what ships were left after the initial battles. And I would say that was probably around 1122 or 1123. So a number of years ago. He says, to my knowledge, and even during my military service, I do not recall any other official conflicts involving interventions from any of the Eastern Kingdoms. Now, that said, there are intelligence reports all the time of rebels rebels in Southport, rebels throughout the borderlands, and insinuations that they are being supported by the Eastern Kingdoms, that they're receiving weapons, food, resources, even coin, to subvert the occupation of the borderlands.
Do you have any intelligence about possible families who are providing this?
I don't.
I don't expect
Says,
you to,
"Ma'am,
but
I am not an intelligencer. I'm not even a scout.
okay.
I was literally a patrolman and a gatekeeper at the fort. Essentially, I've only served in the infantry. I've never traveled east of Morath, in fact. And even when I was stationed there, we never had any incursions. We never had any rebel attacks. He says, which is what made the terrible incident that I was witness to so troubling. He says, in my time in Morath, there were never any uprisings, any attacks. The people of Morath just wanted to live their lives, and while they may have been discontent to be under the occupation of the Empire, nonetheless, none of them wanted to risk their lives or their families' well-being. We never saw any action of rebellion. So that's what's so troubling about these orders, these last orders that my captain received, was why? Why would this be happening now, of all times?
Yeah, I apologize. I didn't really expect you to know, but if you did, I could provide some insight, maybe. I think and I look around at the rest of our group, I think we have been gone longer than we first considered.
So out of character, none of you guys have any memories beyond the year 1120, and you are now certain it is the year 1134. So there is a 14-year gap between your last memories and now. That much you are certain of. What caused that, though, still remains a mystery. Steiner kind of puts the book back. You know, he kind of looks around. He kind of puts the book back. The servers bring over platters of food, and refill your mugs with drink.
And I look at the servers and say, "Thank you. This is quite generous."
Oldrad asks one of the servers if they happen to sell any pipes and tobacco.
The server says, no, but the finest pipe maker in all of Aigner is just a block away. And
Thank you.
he stays open late.
Thank you so much.
She smiles.
Oldrad's going to go ahead and get up and excuse himself while he goes and buys himself the finest pipe tobacco.
Okay.
Oldrad, if they have something stronger than the tobacco, get me some.
Certainly, Bivoj.
You need someone to go with you?
Shoulder.
I think I'll be okay.
Okay.
Everybody's weapons are checked.
All right. I'll adjudicate that in a minute, Oldrad.
Yep.
The rest of you are still at the table. You're eating. Steiner seems, again, very relieved. He says, is there anything else that I could help you guys with? I feel so unable to repay you, but certainly anything that I'm privy to, I'm more than happy to share.
Just keep my cup full.
Liber's eating and like focusing on like just thinking about like what's going on, and Steiner, just what do you remember of the Great Storms?
He says, well, I was 12, and I remember it was evening. In fact, my family had just finished supper. I had asked my parents if my younger siblings and I could go play in the yard before it was dark. We played outside for a little while, and it felt kind of moist in the air, as if it was going to be raining. And then we kind of heard some thunder in the distance. My folks called us in. We came into the house, and shortly thereafter went to sleep. The next memory I have was being awoken by my parents and my father picking up my younger siblings and telling us we had to go to the storm cellar. I could hear thunder just tearing through the sky, and flashes of lightning and it coming through the windows, and wind, the loudest wind. We crawled down the ladder into the storm cellar and huddled, and just heard terrible storm outside. My family must have been in that storm cellar for an entire day. And only once did my father go up above during the storm. And when he came back down, he told us that the sky was dark, and he said it was purple. He said the fields were completely flooded. Storms continued, subsiding somewhat, but then returning. And they lasted 6 days. And then they stopped. They subsided. The storms had done much damage to rural folks, to villages, to towns and settlements, to hamlets. In many cases, the winds literally tore the roofs off of buildings, or knocked over grain towers, or unfortunately, many farmers lost their livestock. It had terrible. It wreaked havoc on the land as well. Many farmers lost their entire crops. The fields were saturated. And even in the aftermath, I remember that whole season. Simple things like hay had become a commodity because much of the hay yield had turned moldy. And it had a very large impact. That's my recollection of it. I remember my family helping our local church to rebuild the steeple of the church. It had been knocked over. My father helped with the rebuilding of the church, and I remember our parish priest saying that although we don't understand why the one true God always does, but that certainly the storms must have been some kind of omen of his power.
Thank you. That helps a lot. I was just I was thinking about a storm that we had been through, and I was just wondering if it would jog my memory at all. Your story.
So here's what I'm going to have you guys do. Based on Steiner's tale, I'm going to have each of you make an intelligence roll under.
That's a no with a natural 20.
Not at all.
I have 3 under.
8 under.
4,
Nope.
2 under.
Ah, hang on.
So let's do
What
this.
under?
I'm going to go around, and I'm going to have you tell me if you were successful or not. We'll start with Havardr.
No.
Okay. Liber. No. Claude.
Yes, 8 under.
Claude, your flash, as Steiner was telling this story about the storms, you again find yourself in this memory marching through a storm at night. The rain coming down, the wind howling, the sound of thunder, lightning flashing across the sky, occasionally illuminating the sky, and in fact you see a purple sky. But in one of those lightning flashes, you see yourself traveling through some open kind of barren plains, and in the distance you see the silhouette of a tower.
Okay.
Leonard, were you successful?
4 under. Yes, 4 under.
Leonard, you also have a similar flash. It's a kind of a montage of memories. At one point you're walking, and it's kind of like late afternoon, just before it gets dark. And you could see clearly that like you're kind of in this open plain, and there's hills in the distance. And you see it starting to get dark, and you're with a column of people, some soldiers, some priests, some knights on horses. And ahead of the column you see a carriage, and there's people in front of the carriage. And you're kind of with this big group. And then it flashes, your memory flashes to nighttime during a storm, rain, wind, thunder, lightning flashing across a purple sky. Bivoj, successful?
3 under. Yes.
Bivoj, you also see a similar thing, but not the daytime part. You see that you're walking alongside a carriage. The carriage is incredibly well appointed, like the kind of carriage that like nobility would ride in, like someone of nobility, like a very well appointed carriage. And the guards that are escorting the carriage are all wearing like full plate mail armor. And you see that on their plate mail armor and their shields, you see the Kingdom of Avendia's coat of arms. Sarah, successful or no?
Successful. And remember, I've already seen the tower.
You have kind of a montage flashback as well. But in yours, you're walking alongside a bunch of people through this plain during daytime. And you see people on horseback. You see some people walking behind the carriage, alongside the carriage, and in front of the carriage. And you hear a voice barking off orders. And it's you can't quite hear or remember who the voice is, but you kind of get the impression that whoever it was must have been kind of in charge of something related to this, because they're barking off orders. And you hear like this low voice saying like, "Move quickly or we won't make it in time." Bane, did you succeed on your roll?
I succeeded, but I am quite inebriated.
Okay. Bane, you have a flashback. It's not quite the same thing. You flash back to being in a tavern. You could see your own hands. You could see 5 empty mugs and a bottle. And you could see that you are going to reach for the bottle, and you go to pour it into the mug and the bottle's empty. And you hear a voice that says, "Stop your drinking. We have work to do." Part of you recognizes this voice. as if maybe it's a voice of authority or someone who you respected. But you also have like this emotional reaction to hearing the voice of kind of like resenting that person. Smash cut to Oldrad. Oldrad, you walk out of the gray mare and you turn left following the server's direction, and you walk down the block. There are a number of shops. Some of them are closed for the night, but a few of them seem open and have like lanterns or torches outside. And at the end of the block, on the corner, you see a small shop. It's actually a building where there's two shops, and this is like the corner part of that. And it says Piotr's Pipes.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a lantern on inside.
I enter the door.
Okay. You see an older man, and he seems to be looks like at one point he might have had blonde hair, but much of that has gone white.
Mm-hmm.
He has a very thick, bushy mustache that kind of like twists up into waxed tips.
Okay.
And he's wearing, like a common shirt with a tunic over it. And he kind of looks up from his wooden counter at you. And behind him, you see like wooden shelves with glass jars and clay pots and even some larger jugs. And then on the other side are more shelves. And you see several dozen different pipes, from the most common looking pipes to things that look like they have been carved from extravagant materials.
Okay.
And he says, "Oh, good evening, sir.
Good
How may I
evening.
help you?"
I am in search of some of the finest pipeweed I can possibly find, and maybe something a little extra. And I approach the counter and clasp hands if he I offer my hand to shake.
He does. He says, "Well, I've got quite a variety." He says, "The fall harvest, the season's harvest came in very, very nicely, I would say."
Wonderful.
He says, "Are you
wonderful.
looking for a stronger flavor, more smoky, or a mild? What's your flavor?"
I like a good robust flavor.
Ah, robust indeed. And he turns around and he says, "Well, I have a rather woody oak. I have a cherry wood flavored." He says, "I've got," he says, "you look like you'd perhaps prefer something with a little bit of a northern twist to it."
You're correct.
He takes it and he says, "May I see your pipe? Or do you need to purchase one?"
I would need to purchase one, and my purse is fat, so please show me your best.
Ah. He goes over, he shows you a display, and there are some pipes that are like Sherlock Holmes level pipes where they're like a whole hand to hold them, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
then there's smaller ones, there's longer ones. So he gives you a whole variety. There are some that are carved with, like bone, and some that are carved from like ivory.
I pick up one that I don't have to hold all the time, that I could just like leave in the corner of my mouth, but of a nice extravagant material.
So small but finely made.
Yes.
He picks out a mahogany pipe with gold inlay, and it's the perfect size. He says,
Perfect.
"A man of your age, sir, should have a good pipe. Treat yourself." And he
I
smiles.
think I shall.
He says, "Well, this pouch and that pipe. I'm afraid to say, sir, it will cost 5 gold pieces. I will accept silver in the number of 50 if you have it."
I set down 5 gold pieces for him.
He's like, "Ah." He kind of looks at the gold and he looks at you, because you don't look like a noble. And he looks at the gold again.
Mm-hmm.
He says, "Ah, some older coin. Nonetheless, appreciate it." And
Of course,
scoops
good
up
sir.
the coins. He says,
Go ahead.
he says, "Give it a try if you'd like." And he takes out, he's got like a little burning stick to light your,
Mhm.
it's like, kind of almost like an incense stick, but it's
Yeah. Yeah, I get some going, take a couple good puffs, and appreciate it.
It is strong. It's got a kick. It's
Mhm.
you could tell that it is fine quality tobacco.
As I'm doing that, I just glance around the shop and I ask, "It's been some time since I've been up this way. Could you catch me up on the current events?"
Of course, he says. That's what those two chairs in the front window are for. Let's
Ooh,
have a smoke and a talk. And he
All right.
grabs his pipe and stuffs some tobacco in it, and then you guys go and sit in these two, like they're not like noble level, but they're nicely upholstered chairs.
Yeah.
There's like a little table, and you notice that he has a bottle of brandy and a couple small glasses, and he pours out a glass for you, and you guys sit and start talking. Smash cut back to the inn. All of you during Steiner's story had some kind of, maybe a flashback, maybe you didn't have a flashback. But Steiner relays the information to Liber about the storms. And at a certain point after he finishes, he says, some of you, and forgive me if I seem disrespectful, but some of you seem like you would be old enough, perhaps older than me, to remember the storm. I'm curious as to why you don't, because everyone in the lands, in all the kingdoms, experienced the storm.
We have a
I remember.
Go ahead, Matt.
we have a lapse in memory.
He says, certainly, I mean, I was a young man, a 12-year-old at the time, but I certainly remember it.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember the storm. But what I didn't get is where I was, we were pretty well protected. So I didn't hear about casualties among the people. So what kind of injuries were suffered, and do you know how many died and how?
Death.
Before he
Where
answers
you
that,
were.
I want you to roll a d20 and tell me what the flat number is.
Not enough
Okay,
people died, if you ask
D20.
me.
4.
Okay. He says, well, my guess is that perhaps tens of thousands of people died during the storms. He says, I, again, learned much of this later as I got older, but there were many villages and settlements that were in lowlands that were literally flooded for weeks and people died. He says some of the tornadoes inland wiped out whole communities. Some of the hurricanes along the coastal cities also created incredible damage. He says, truly, it was one of the greatest catastrophic events in the history of the lands.
I don't know if you can tell by my accent, but I am from the Eastern Kingdoms.
He says, I suspected, but it sounds like perhaps you've lived amongst other people, because it's not as strong as most people from the Eastern Kingdoms, at least from what I've heard. I personally have never actually met anyone in my lifetime from the Eastern Kingdoms, mostly because of the embargo.
Yeah. Well, I've traveled quite a bit, and I just wanted to know, have you heard anything from the Eastern Kingdoms? Did they suffer as well?
Most certainly. throughout the entirety of the lands. But I'm not as well versed on the casualties or what happened with them. There are certainly learned folk, likely priests of the church, and you notice his eyes dart over to Liber, who may know better than I how it impacted the Eastern Kingdoms.
Very good. Thank you.
Of course.
And I'm not imbibing a lot. Could possibly be listening to the lute player, tapping my foot, stuff like that, trying to act normal.
All right. Niels?
Yeah, Steiner, is there any word that you know of that disappearances during the storm? Aside from people getting killed, were there also mentions of people just missing?
He says, well, yes. That happened a lot. And you know, oftentimes people would drown, or you know, people. I mean, there were numerous ships, trade ships, on the seas that never returned to port, that were presumably destroyed by the storms. He says there were accounts of many communities where people had gone missing.
Okay, because I do remember a bit of a storm that had a purple sky. That's totally odd, of course. But the storm that you're talking about, I don't necessarily recall. No. You recall that storm as having a outlandish purplish color, or just a regular storm clouds?
Are you asking Steiner that?
Yeah.
He says, well, I didn't leave the storm cellar. My father said that when he went up, he saw that the sky was a kind of a dark purple.
Yeah, it was heavy rain and heavy wind. It was cold, and the marsh did not help at all. Yeah. And those nobles shouting at us, "March faster! We're almost there!" Rips through my skull.
As you are, listening to this, you notice that the lute player finishes a song, singing and playing his song, and he kind of stands up and takes a bow, and everybody applauds and cheers for him, and he says, "Good folk, I shall return after a short break and a refreshing beverage." And they applaud and hoot for him again. And you see him kind of step off this small wooden platform, which is acting as a stage, and he walks over to the bar. He seems to be a man who's probably in his late 30s, early 40s, fair-skinned, sort of shaggy blonde hair with some gray in it, clean-shaven and attractively dressed. He kind of makes his way over to the bar. People stop in and clap him on the shoulder, shake his hands, and he seems to be very gracious.
I say, "Excuse me a second,"
Hold my beer.
and I'll get up. I don't care what you do with my beer. I'll get up and walk to the bar and wait for him to take the adulation and whatever.
Okay, yeah, he does, and you see he's ordered some drink. The bartender's pouring out a drink for him, and he seems to just be waiting there.
"Hi, good sir, I didn't get your name."
He turns to you and he says, "Fair lady, I am Erik."
Erik?
Yes.
Hi.
And you?
I am Sarah Florian Marjit from the Eastern Kingdoms.
Oh, well met.
Yes.
And what is a young lady from the Eastern Kingdoms doing here?
Well, you know, traveling. I was wondering, have you been to the Eastern Kingdoms of late?
Not of late. Not of late, young lady. In my youth, yes.
And how long ago was that?
Oh my, perhaps 20 years ago?
Ah, okay.
Long before the Empire, before the storms.
Yeah. I was just wondering if you have heard any news from any source about the shape of the Eastern Kingdoms, the people there, the anything. I haven't been there for a long time.
No, as I've said, not since the embargo. There's no means other than treacherous and dangerous routes over land. There's no means of getting to the Eastern Kingdoms anymore.
Oh, so sad. I'll just have to find my way back. And I slide him a silver and I say, do you know any songs of the Eastern Kingdoms?
I do. And he takes the coin and he says, after my break, I would be more than happy to play a few in honor of your home.
Oh, that would be lovely. Thank you. I'll go back to the table. And I sit down and I go, no tales.
Smash cut back to the pipe. Oldrad, you are enjoying your freshly purchased tobacco and a snifter of cognac.
As we're doing so, I speak to the man. It's been some time since I've been around, and I was wondering if you remember about 14 years ago during some scary storm-like weather, what was happening around that time.
He says, well, you're referring to the storms.
Yes.
Everyone remembers, especially gentlemen of our age. It's funny to think now that the children who were born after the storms have no concept of what our world was like before.
Indeed. Things were a bit more civil back then, I think.
Certainly more stable, as it were, but here in Aigner, at least, we have managed to avoid the yoke of the Empire, though I'm not sure how long that will last. The Empire has established quite a foothold in Southport, and it would not be a surprise to see their ships sailing upriver to conquer all of the borderlands.
Any word of them amassing troops for any campaign soon, or just suspicions of that happening?
He says nothing reliable.
Okay.
Just rumors. I am far too old, as I'm assuming you are, my good man, to be joining any rebellion.
I simply wish to protect mine. That's all. You can, because I'm still wearing chainmail, so I'm not out of the fight yet.
He says, well, I admire you. I was never a fighting man, but for those of our age, to be willing, should it come to that, is admirable. He says, may I assume then that it is safe to say you are not a supporter of the Empire?
I am not.
Nor am I. And if given the choice between an allegiance with Lee County or living under the yoke and the taxation of the Empire, I would choose to serve the Lees. Though I do not think that they have the military strength, unfortunately, to resist if the Empire were to conduct a full invasion.
No, they would need other help.
You seem like you do have a sense of, that of a veteran about you. Did you serve in the resistance against the invasion of Southport, perhaps?
No, I lived in the borderlands with my family, and sadly, they were killed by the Church of the One True God.
He looks at you curiously and he says, "You mean the Empire?"
Yes.
Roll a d20 and tell me what the rule is.
We'll do that. That's a 4.
You notice he seemed a little suspicious about your statement, but then he kind of just nods and he takes a sip of his cognac.
Yeah, he as Oldrad has already had some drink and he's having this cognac and some strong pipe weed, he's kind of like got that stare off into the distance as he's remembering his family.
Smash cut back to the inn. Steiner says, "Well then, my friends, tomorrow I intend to inquire about passage up north to Lee County. Where are you headed? Or do you intend to stay here in Aigner?"
I move Bane's cup out of his reach.
I'm going to see my family.
Watch
I don't know if my friends go with me. but
Yes. If you intend to inquire
see
about
them.
passage across the lake tomorrow, you'll likely want to get up early before the fishermen leave to try to negotiate passage, unless you intend to wait until the afternoon after most of the fishing is done in the morning.
Well, trust me, friend, I'm not sure I'll be able to sleep tonight. But
Of course.
I haven't seen my family for 24 years. It's a long time.
Indeed that is. Steiner looks around the table, finishing his mug of ale, and he says, "Again, my friends, thank you. I do not have the means to thank you by coin, but you have my utter gratitude, and I will keep all of you in my prayers going forward. May you find answers to the questions that you ask, and may your road be peaceful. And may the
Thank
one
you,
true
sir.
God be with all of you." He nods and puts his hand over his heart.
I put my hand over my heart and say, "And also with you."
And he nods and he kind of stands up and starts making his way towards the stairs that go up to the rooms.
I'm gonna stand up as well and take Critter's leash, and well, I think it's time to take Critter out and make a walk. So
Hang on a second. Hang on a second, Claude.
Sure.
I think one of us should wait outside his room. I think we should take shifts, making sure he stays safe. We can discuss this later.
No, I will see about it when I get back.
Okay.
Come on, Critter, let's go. And I just start walking out.
Okay.
As I'm walking out, I'm gonna, as I'm outside, I'm gonna look for where the probably the barracks or something would be, and see if I can walk around and recognize any of my old mates from the militia that may have been promoted. I'm starting to dawn on me that 14 years may have gone by, so they might be around, but probably be promoted. So I'm just going to walk around and see if I can maybe recognize some of the fellows.
Okay, you're going to be walking for a little bit of a while, primarily because you're not really sure where the barracks would be. You didn't see barracks when you guys came in the western gate. You didn't see barracks, but you feel like maybe there might be barracks closer to the port side, to the eastern side of the town. So you kind of start making your way over there.
Yeah, and if it takes a bit too long, I'll probably be asking one of the guards that I see if they know of a place where some of the officers might go after when they're off duty.
Okay. Back at the inn, any of you guys want to do anything else?
More drink.
They keep serving it as long as you have coins.
I tell them, could you start to water it down a bit?
Just serve him water and tell him it's alcohol.
I heard that. I'm no fool.
I have asked the bard to play a song from my homeland, so I'm going to stay up and listen to that, and then have we gotten rooms already?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
The bard Ferric indeed starts to play. When he starts his set, he starts playing, and people are still talking and laughing and stuff, and he's not singing, he's just playing. And you notice that as he's playing, people kind of start to hush. And the melody that he's playing is kind of like in a minor key. It's almost kind of sad and wistful. And he's strumming this whole thing, and it kind of starts off slow, and then it starts to build up into an intensity. And then he lets out like a long note, like a long sustained note. And towards the end of it, it just starts to add a little bit of vibrato, adding to the sadness of the tune. And then he continues playing, and as he's playing the melody, he starts to sing. And you notice that as he's singing, the tune is familiar to you. You remember it. And it's kind of a sad, tragic tale about a monk of the Eastern faith who serves throughout his whole life, traveling from place to place, teaching the word of the one true God. And in his humility and in his service to the one true God, he receives nothing but pain and misery and suffering. But despite all of the things throughout the song that happened to this monk, he holds true to his faith. And at the very end of the tale, he is welcomed into the heavens by the one true God for his service. And at the end of this song, and the last chord that he plays, you could hear a pin drop. No one makes a sound. Not a scrape of a fork. Not a sound of a mug. And there's just silence for a few seconds. And then everybody applauds in this huge uproar. And he stands up and he takes a bow. And after the applause dies down, he says, "Let's lighten up the mood a little bit, shall we?" And then he starts playing like kind of a happier, upbeat, faster paced song, and people start like cheering and dancing and clapping. And the mood changes again. Bane, make an intelligence roll under.
I got a 2.
All right, you, during the sad song, you had this flash. You had a flash, kind of a montage of memories. Flashes of your family, flashes of your children, flashes of being in a cemetery, Flashes of finding yourself in a field surrounded by the bodies of fallen comrades. Flashes of yourself in a tavern. Flashes of being handed a scroll with the seal of the Western Church. Flashes of marching in a column with soldiers, with scouts, with cavalry on horseback. Flashes of the night sky during a terrible storm, and seeing the silhouette of a tower in the distance.
I need some air. I get up to go outside and get some fresh air.
Okay.
I'm gonna follow Bane.
Okay, you're gonna follow? Okay.
Okay, Havardr, you wingman Bane. Back to Oldrad. Piotr is pleased to discuss specific things with you, but otherwise he kind of makes small talk. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk to him about?
Not specifically. I just inquire about the special pipeweed that Bivoj was asking for.
He says,
My friend was looking for something a little bit more special if you had any in stock.
He says, I do. He says, one of the advantages of not living under the yoke of the Empire. He stands up and he goes over to a very humble looking painting of like a pastoral countryside with a little farm and trees in the background, and he takes it off the wall, and you see there's like a little niche behind it in the wall with a bunch of small pouches.
No, get out of there.
And he takes a pouch and he pulls it down and he says, now this one is 1 gold piece.
Very well. I suppose he might need a pipe, but nothing extravagant for him.
I'll throw the pipe in. And he grabs
Very
just
well.
a very basic pipe.
Yeah, I set down the money.
He picks up the coin, and again, he looks at it and he says, your coins are remarkably clean for such a vintage. He says, did you inherit these or something?
No, it was during part of my adventuring that I came across some of these old coins. They were well preserved.
He says, indeed they are. They looked like they were minted a month ago.
They were in a very extravagant case in velvet that lasted the time.
Excellent. Well, I actually collect old coins, so I might keep these. He says, well, my friend, you're always welcome back, but as I get older, it's difficult to stay open late. So I'm going to say to you, good night, and you're always welcome back. And he smiles.
Thank you for the company. Clasp hands and I'll head out.
He says, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Oldrad Warmail.
Yes. Well met, Oldrad.
Same to you.
Enjoy. And after you walk out, he closes the door, he closes the curtains, and you see things closing up. Claude, you're going to make a charisma roll under.
Oh, nice. Just 10 under.
All right. You're starting to ask about barracks and where officers would hang out, and you basically convince a few of the militiamen, and they point you in the right direction. You head towards the eastern gate, which faces the harbor and the docks. And you see, indeed, a walled-off area where there's military barracks and a training yard, but you also see a tavern, not an inn, just a one-story tavern. And it says, the officers' mess. And it looks like there are there's illumination inside. You see light inside.
Okay. Are there people coming in and out? Fairly
You do.
busy going?
You see a couple people come in. They look like all of them look like they're in military garb or in armor. You see a person come out. The person coming out just looks like a soldier, not an officer.
I'm gonna try and take a semi-covert place that I can hang out and watch the entrance for a while. See if look about the comings and goings, and if I recognize anyone not yet planning to go in.
Go ahead and make a wisdom roll under.
Ooh, that's gonna be difficult.
Yes, I know.
No, that's 18. That's 12 over.
All right, you don't see anybody going in anymore. After about 10 minutes, you see. Oh, and by the way, there are windows, but there are drapes over the windows, so you can see light, but you can't really see who's inside. You do see another soldier, come out, and he kind of sees you, and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing there?"
I'm just waiting, see if some of my friends may drop by.
Oh yeah, what are your friends' names?
I gave him 2 of the names of some of my mates from back then.
Roll a d20 and just tell me what the flat result is.
13.
Okay. You're very lucky. I rolled an 11, you rolled a 13. So you drop a few names, and when you drop one of those names, he says, "You mean Captain Elwig?"
Yeah, probably.
He says, "He's inside. Do you want me to get him?"
No, I was just wondering if he was stationed here or not.
He's the captain of the Day Watch. He's off duty right now. If you want, I can tell him that you're here.
No. I wouldn't want to bother him in his off hours. I'll look for him in the morning.
He nods. He walks away.
All right. Probably gonna hang about for another 10-15 before heading back to the inn.
Okay. Anyone else doing anything special in the inn?
About what time is it?
I would say, Liber, it is. I mean, by the time you had dinner and drinks and discussion, it's probably like 10 p.m.
I was gonna say I might want to look for some supplies. I think I'll wait for the morning to try to find some place that's open.
Okay. Are you heading up to the room then? To your rooms?
Yes.
Okay, so you head up. Bivoj?
I plan to go to the barman or barmaid. I put 100 silver on the counter and I say, "Wake me up like I don't know. What's the time that the fishermen go out on the lake?"
Dawn. Like 6 a.m.
All right, wake me sometime before that so I can prepare myself and have some meal.
As you wish, sire. That 100 silver pieces just completely paid for the entire meal of your entire table and all of your rooms.
And I put another 100 silver on the counter. And I say,
bartender walks over and he's like, "Yes, sir."
to that big man that went for a brief, pour him whatever he wants until this is sufficient.
I don't think a human could drink that much, but we'll provide him with whatever he'd like, sire.
Pour him your best.
As you wish.
Today he's drinking on me.
As you wish.
And now point me to my room.
One of the servers stops what she's doing and escorts you upstairs. Havardr, you are outside with Bane. Bane is rocking back and forth slowly on the porch.
Doing what I can to support him. I know he's probably not the easiest to work with.
He is a large man.
Yes.
You see, even though it's pretty late, you see people still like out on the roads, you know, walking, traveling. You see some what look like maybe street vendors like closing up their small wagons and you know, it seems like things are winding down. Make actually both of you, I'll have you both do this. Make a wisdom roll under.
Failed miserably. I must be sobering up.
Failed miserably.
Okay. You're kind of standing on the front wraparound porch of the inn, and you see Oldrad, as if right on cue. You see Oldrad walking back down the street towards you. As you're standing out on the front porch, you see Oldrad walking back, presumably from the pipe shop. And he is holding a very nice pipe and smoking it as he's walking back towards you guys at the inn. Oldrad, you walk up, returning from the pipe shop, and you see Bane wobbling on the porch outside of the inn, and Havardr kind of half holding him up.
Oldrad, is that you?
Oldrad nods, and he walks up, and as he approaches,
well met, my friend.
you see he's smoking a pipe.
It's quite the nice looking pipe.
What have you got there?
Oldrad nods and says, I'm tired, I'm going to bed. And then he goes inside.
Well, all right then.
Bastard. As the youngest member of the party, Leonard, what are you doing?
Yeah, I just wrote like thoughts of mine after the meal from the conversation with the guy, and I'm currently thinking if it has even sense to want to return to Starport and so on, and yeah, thinking about waking up early. After that, he just packs his stuff and goes to his room. Not talkative this evening.
Okay.
Leonard, aren't you going to stay until at least Oldrad gets back?
As Sarah is saying this, you see Oldrad walk in, and he looks at the room and kind of nods to everybody, and he points upstairs, and he walks up the stairs towards the rooms.
Okay, let's go. Let's follow Oldrad.
Okay, anyone else not going to sleep? Bane?
I guess I'll stay with Bane.
All right, Bane, you're out on the porch. There's a sturdy wooden bench that's on the porch, and it seems to be inviting you. And you sit down on the bench, and within about 48 seconds, Bane is passed out on the bench. Havardr, what would you like to do?
I'm gonna stand by him because I don't want anyone to like walk up and steal from him or anything.
Yeah. Now
I'll try to wake him up
when
in a bit.
when you guys got your rooms, presumably you offloaded a bunch of stuff, because I'm pretty sure Bane was carrying like 150 pounds worth of treasure. Okay, so someone is up in the Bane treasure room. You stay for a little while, and Bane is now in a deep coma-like sleep, snoring.
I don't think there's any way that I could carry him, do I?
Not a prayer. No.
Okay. No, I'll bring him a blanket or something and then head to sleep.
Okay. Right around that time, Claude, you're returning with Critter, and you see Bane passed out on a wooden bench on the porch of the Gray Mare.
Mm-hmm.
Then you see Havardr covering Bane up with a blanket.
You're not gonna let him stay out here, right? I mean, come on. I'll help you get him in. And walk up closer, and Critter starts licking his face.
No.
Probably getting contact drunk.
Wait.
I will say that Havardr and Claude, your combined strength is enough to carry Bane up to the bedroom, and you do.
No.
Nighttime falls, everybody sleeps in nice beds in an inn, and all of you regain 2 hit points because sleep helps.
Sleep helps.
Sleep indeed helps. Some of you are now
I
at
just-
full, some of you are still recovering from days of damage.
I want to go around and make sure I know who is in which room,
Okay.
especially where Stein is. The Stein
So,
family is.
The Steiner family is on the 3rd floor. You know where their
Okay.
room is. You guys are all on the 2nd floor because you have 4 rooms for your entire group.
Okay.
There's
Meta
a knock
moment.
at yes.
Role playing sleep actually makes you sleepy. Just FYI.
At the ass crack of dawn, there's a loud knock on Bivoj's door, which is also Sarah's room. You are awoken. You hear a voice that says, "Sire, as you requested, it's early. Please wake up. Are you there?"
Yeah, he's there.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right,
Yeah.
Sire. There's some fresh rolls, but breakfast won't be ready for another hour. But if you'd like, there's some bread downstairs before you depart.
Yeah, give me breath. I'm out of my room in 10 minutes.
You
As
want
you
me to
get-
come with you, You want me to come with you, B-boy?
Anyone who's able to come with me.
Okay, I'll get
Now
dressed
is
real.
the chance.
I'll get dressed real quick. I don't have any weapons, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I quickly dress up. Anything that I might need. I leave the rest of my stuff, the bag or the backpack.
Now, to your knowledge, you can get your weapons, but you would have to go out the western gate and then circle around outside of town back to the docks if that was your intention.
Yeah, that's too much time. I'm just
Come
putting on my armor and everything. I'm leaving my backpack here, and I'm just taking money. And I'm
yeah, I'll
leaving.
take a small pouch of coins myself.
Okay. You guys get
Silver.
up. Anyone else getting up super early?
If they stop to wake me up, I'll come. Otherwise, I have like no idea.
That is
Same
correct.
way.
Sarah and B-Boy, you head downstairs. You see a
And
little
I'm
still
sorry, and I'm
steaming warm
taking a
bread.
snack with me.
Okay.
Okay.
You guys
So-
make your way through town towards the eastern gate, and you head out the eastern gate, and you see along the waterline, along the shoreline, you see about 10 long docks, and each dock has like anywhere from like 4 to 6 fishing boats. You see people already kind of loading up gear into the boats. You see, kind of all these fishermen getting stuff ready to go out.
I come to the most the most lake-worthy boat I can
Okay.
see. And I asked the fisherman, how much do you earn per day of fishing?
On a good haul.
Meanwhile,
Um,
I'm looking for the harbor master.
Okay. You ask the fisherman, he says, on a good haul, we could earn 10 to 20 silver.
All right, if I give you 5 gold, would you take me to the settlement on the other side?
He says, sir, if you gave me 5 gold, I'd take you all the way to Southport.
Okay, here you go. And I just
He takes each coin and bites into it. And he says, okay. He says, can I ask a favor though? Is your need urgent? Or can
Gravely.
you wait until after we come back in a few hours?
It's gravely urgent.
Okay. All aboard. And
I just have to look.
You see his crewmates are like, what's going on now? And he's like, I'm taking this gentleman across the lake. So you guys can have the day off. And he tosses each of them a silver and they're like, fantastic. And they all leave.
I
Sarah,
yell at
you see Bivoj getting onto a boat.
Oh, shoot. Okay, I run over there. Bivoj!
Come here, Sarah. We're
I want
departing.
to share this with you guys, meta moment, and for all the audience watching. Every time I say Marie's character's name, my phone activates because Sarah is very close to another word that's spelled S-I-R-I.
Oh.
Okay. So that said, Bivoj, you get on the
Gary's
boat.
a
Sarah,
communist.
Yeah, I'll
Sarah,
get on the boat.
you run over, you get on the boat. You start crossing the lake, and it is a 10-mile trip across the lake. The waters are actually pretty smooth. The fisherman is basically about halfway across the lake, and he says, so are we going anywhere in particular, sir?
There should be a settlement in the east with probably a fisherman, if he's still fishing, called Dietrich. Do you know him?
I'm going to actually make a roll. He says, nope. But I mean, there are some homesteads and I don't know about settlements, but we could kind of troll the coast and, you know, stop along the way if that's your wish.
It is. Okay. Off we go, Captain.
Well, very good.
And I apologize for him and just start making small talk like, how long have you been doing this? How do you like it? Blah, 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 blah. What ladies do.
Yeah, he tells you that, you know, he looks like he's in his like late 20s, early 30s. He's been, you know, doing this for quite some time. Overall, his fishing business hasn't really been affected very much by the Empire because the Empire really has not come this far north. But he tells you that he knows other people who used to live further south down the river who basically gave up their homes and moved up north.
Those are precisely the people we're looking for.
He says, well, it's likely that they might have a cottage, you know, right on the lake. He says I will tell you though, these are hardy folk and not always trusting because there are occasionally low people who come down from the mountains and raid.
Okay, if it helps, they should have 3 children.
He says, yeah, there are families, to be sure, but
well,
I
we'll
don't
check them
know
all
of them.
We'll check all of them, or possibly how much or how many we could.
Very well. And so you continue. He He kind of reaches the other side of the lake. You actually see a few fishing boats, like kind of out. He sort of sails past some of them and drops sail and sort of shouts out, and he says, "Anyone there by the name of Yetri?" And fishing folk shake their head. After about 2 hours of stopping by random fishing boats and going along the coast and yelling out to people who have cottages, you come across one fisherman who's out on a boat. And when the captain yells out if he knows a man by the name of Yetri, he says, "Who's asking?"
Bivoj! His
Oh, I don't know.
brother-in-law!
And the man says, "Brother-in-law."
I've been away for 29 years.
He looks at you.
I look younger, don't I?
He says, "Yes." He says, "How do I know that you're not some Imperial spy?"
I say to the
taken-
boatman, just
You've-
be calm. This'll play out.
You've taken care of my
I've
dad
got your back.
and my sister. Only a couple of years before I left, my dad was injured because of the woodcutting accident. He was not able to do his job anymore. And you were so kind to take him and my sister to your home. From what I've heard, you have 3 children. That's good.
He says, "I'm not Yetri, but I know of him, and I know of his wife. If you are indeed his brother-in-law and his wife is your sister, what is his wife's name?"
Kazi, my dear sister.
You see, he kind of still looks suspicious, but he says, pull your boat up to shore over there." And your captain follows his boat, and you see the man throws an anchor out kind of in the shallows. And you're still about 20 feet out from the shore. There's no dock. The man says, "Yetri lives inland. He and Kazi have a small farm. You go that way east. You'll pass a few groves of trees into a slightly hilly area. Their farm is just before the ascent into the mountains."
How far is that?
About a half mile.
That's good. Thank you, good sir.
And the
I
other
haven't
fisherman nods, and he kind of pulls his anchor and turns his sails and starts sailing back out. The captain says, "Would you like me to wait here, sir?"
I fling him another coin. Gold one. Yeah, just stay here.
Do you want me to come with you?
Yeah, come.
Will you be okay here? I say to the fisherman.
He says, "I will.
I hope
But-
so.
As I see that neither of you are armed, I would strongly suggest that perhaps one of you take my harpoon." And he hands you this crude-looking spear. He says, "At the very
Thanks.
least, if any of low people are in that area, you'll have something to defend yourselves with."
Thank you. I'll put it to good use.
So you guys jump off and basically swim into the land. You're soaking wet. The fisherman captain drops his anchor and waits for you. You begin making your way up the shore and through some open ground until you get into this wooded area. And continuing east using the sun to navigate, you travel for indeed about a half mile. And you kind of come out of this wooded area into a little bit of a hilly
Could
area.
have gotten.
And just beyond to the east, you see mountains. And as you're kind of looking up at the mountains and you're looking through this hilly area, you see a wisp of smoke up a few hundred yards away, perhaps from a chimney. And as you continue to walk, you kind of come over this hill and you look down into a little valley and you see fertile ground. You see kind of a stretch of land that looks like it's been tilled, and you see a small farmstead. It has a very simple wooden fence around the main house, and you see a barn. And you see a woman with kind of in proximity to a cow. It looks like maybe she's milking a cow. And you see three kids they look like, one's like young, and then a couple that are maybe teenagers. And you see this woman and the three kids kind of by the farmstead.
As I'm approaching, I'm yelling from the distance. Kazi! Yetri!
As you yell that, you see the woman turn and kind of look out towards you, and she kind of puts her hand over her eyes. And
Your small brother is coming!
You see her turn and she says something to the children, and they run off to the house. And she stands up and runs over towards the barn. Do you continue approaching, presumably?
Yeah.
When you get
Let's be a little more cautious here.
When you get about 50 feet away, you see her come out of the barn, and she has like a pitchfork basically for scooping hay, and she's got it kind of in a guarded position. And you see a man come out of the home with a longbow and a quiver of arrows slung over his shoulder. And you see him kind of walking towards her, and both of them are walking towards where you guys are approaching. And as you get to the gate of the fence, the man draws an arrow and pulls it, and he doesn't pull it back, but he readies it. And he says, "That's far enough."
Yeah, I'm stopping. I'm raising my hands.
He says, "Who are you and why are you here?"
Is that how you treat your brother-in-law? Is that how you welcome me?
And you see him look. And you see him look at her. And she looks at him. And you see them slowly start to walk closer. And they get to about 15 feet away from you.
I just push the harpoon into the ground so I'm completely unarmed.
And she says, and you notice as they approach, Bivoj, they look older. They look a lot older. Like
30 years older?
They're looking at you. Well, you remember your sister, and this is indeed your sister, but your sister was 5 years older than you to begin with. And now she looks kind of like an old woman. And Yetri looks like an older man.
Time was not kind to you.
She says...
Nor to your husband.
She says, "How is this possible, Bivoj? We thought you were dead. You don't look like you've aged at all."
Yeah. I've disappeared. I don't know how. I don't know when. I don't know why. I've been gone for 14 years. And I've woke up on the top of some godforsaken mountain.
You see, as you're saying this, Yetri lowers his bow. Kazi walks up to the gate, like literally just right across from you. And she reaches her hands out slowly, and she puts her hands like on your face, on your cheeks. And she's just like completely, almost like in a trance, looking at you, looking at your eyes. And she says, it is my brother. It is Bivoj.
I put my hand on her face. My dear sister. It's been a long 30 years. How my father died.
She breaks out into tears and just reaches across the gate and grabs you in a huge embrace, sobbing. Yetri, dumbfounded, just walks up to the gate. He looks at his wife, he looks at you, he looks at Sarah, and he just says, I don't understand. How is this possible?
I don't know,
that, my
man.
friends, is where we'll end this episode of the Lamenters. Tune in next week to find out what happens with the group and what they will discover about their missing memories. Thank you, as always, to all of you who like and subscribe. Click on that notifications bell. And of course, thank you to all my patrons on Patreon for making this possible. We'll see you on the next episode of the Lamenters, everybody. Peace out.
Well, hello, and welcome to Blayne Allen World. I am Wizzy, the Wizard. I'm back once again to remind you to subscribe and click on the notifications button, and also watch videos that are over there. Tune in to the next episode of whatever show you are just watching, and watch other shows featuring Bill. He made me say that because he's a narcissist. Okay, bye.